Alright, welcome to a video for Algebra 1. We're solving inequalities using multiplication and division. So let's go ahead and dive in. Our first problem you see here is x divided by 4 is less than 5. You'll notice that in this term right here you have x divided by 4, which is the same as 1 over 4, 1/4 x divided by, 1/4 x is less than 5. So you want to move the 4 on the other side. Okay, so you want to use this by multiplication because you want to isolate this variable. So you're looking at the variable and you see that there's a 1/4 attached or divided by 4 attached. Since the operation is division, then in order to move it from one side to the next side, on the right side of this inequality, you want to use multiplication. And you want to use the inverse of whatever's in this place. So the inverse of 1/4, or the reciprocal of 1/4, is in fact multiplying by 4 over 1, which is also the same as just multiplying by 4. So then you know that whatever I do to one side of the equation, or the inequality, I must do to the other side as well. So by multiplying, let me change color here. By multiplying by 4 over 1, I am able to cancel out the 4 on the left side of my equation, and that transfers it over to the right side. So then my new equation is going to be x is less than, and then whatever 4 times 5 is, which is 20. And now I've isolated the variable, and I've achieved my goal for this particular problem. So if it wants you to graph it, then you'll graph it depending on whatever the instruction might be. All right, so let's look at the next problem. All right, so the next problem we have here is x divided by 8 is less than or equal to -2. So the goal is the same as the previous problem. We want to move the 8 over to the right side. So we're dividing x by 8. So since the operation is division, we want to use the opposite operation of multiplication. So to get rid of the 8, we want to multiply by 8 over 1, or 8. And again, whatever I do to one side of the equation, inequality, I must do to the other side of the inequality. So I end up with, so my 8's cancel out, leaving me with x by itself. I've isolated x, less than or equal to, and then -2 times 8 is -16. And that's the answer to this particular problem. Okay, next one. Okay, same thing. Here we go. Y divided by 2.5 is greater than or equal to -4. I want to multiply by 2.5 since I'm dividing y by 2.5. And whatever I do to one side, to balance this out, I must do to the other. So now I've canceled out my 2.5s, leaving me y, isolating the variable, which is what I wanted to do, and then 2.5 multiplied by -4. Okay, so that ends up being 10. That's actually a -10. Okay, so that's the answer to our problem. Alright, so in this problem we're looking at -3x is greater than 24. You're going to notice that the -3 on the left side, we want to move over to the right side because we want to isolate x to get a better idea of what this inequality is telling us. So as before, you look at the variable, you look at the number that's attached, and it's attached by multiplication. So that's the operation that is at work there. So we want to remove that -3 since it's attached by multiplication. We want to use division to move it over. So we want to divide by a -3. Now again, keep in mind, anytime that we're multiplying or dividing a negative integer from one side of the equation or inequality to the other, the sign changes. Okay, so we have a -3 over here divided by -3. That eliminates my 3 on this side, isolating my variable. And since I moved over a negative number by multiplication or division, then this sign, which was greater than, is now going to be less than. And then 24 divided by -3, that is a -8. Okay, so this inequality here is equivalent to this inequality. If I had not changed my sign and not made it the opposite of what it is here, then this would not have been two equivalent inequalities. So keep that in mind again. The rule is, anytime I move a negative number by division or multiplication, then I need to change the sign. I need to make it open up the opposite direction. So in this problem we have x divided by -6 is less than 7. Keep in mind that the goal is to isolate this variable, and the term that's attached to the x is by division. Okay, so since it's attached by division, we want to use multiplication to be able to cancel out our -6 and move it over to the right side. So we're going to multiply by -6, right? Because -6, by doing this, we'll be able to cancel out the -6, the division of x by -6. Okay, so that will cancel out, giving us x by itself. Now, of course, whatever we do to one side of the equation, we must do to the other. A very important thing to keep in mind while you're doing these problems with multiplication and division is that anytime you move an integer with a negative sign from one side of the inequality to the other, you have to switch the sign. So since the sign is less than, we want to switch it to greater than. Okay, so by moving over the negative sign, again, you reverse the sign. And then you can just do your arithmetic. 7 times -6 is -42. So this inequality here is equivalent to this inequality here. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, if I would have left it the way it was, the sign that is, if I would have said x is, actually let me change the color. X is less than -42. This inequality here is not equivalent to this inequality here. Okay, so again, whenever you are transferring a negative integer from one side of the inequality to the other, the sign must be flipped.